Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and I've been wanting to spend more time with a Lexus RX ever since they launched this generation for the 2023 model year. You can get Lexus RXs in a number of different powertrains, and we drove the base 350, we drove the 500H, but this is the plug-in hybrid 450H Plus. And if you watch Daily Motor regularly, you will know I have a love-hate relationship with plug-in hybrids because on one hand, they provide both worlds. They provide you the ability to drive around, do your daily driving on electricity alone, and then when you need to go further and you don't want to spend time at a charger, you can do so on gasoline. But they also provide the downsides of both worlds. You still have to maintain a gasoline engine, and you don't get the efficiency and the range of driving on a full EV, and you don't get the one-pedal driving either. But I do have to say, after spending a week with this RX, the plug-in hybrid aspect is executed so wonderfully, and the rest of the vehicle is so well executed that this one makes a pretty darn good case for itself. And it doesn't help that the other powertrains for the RX are not quite as compelling. So this one you're looking at about $78,000 in this luxury version. This is one of the nicest RXs you're going to see. That's why it costs so much money. And you can tell that this is the bread and butter vehicle for Lexus these days. I think at this point they sell more NXs, but I bet you they make the most money off of the RX model line. And I can't blame them. This car works so well for so many different types of people. So we're going to do a quick walk around on it, and then I'm going to go through my pros and cons with you after spending a week with the car. But I should also point out that we do have a number of videos on this RX. First off, we have a full review of the Mark Levinson sound system. That's actually the main reason I got this vehicle in for review, because I wanted to do a full documented, in-depth test of the Mark Levinson audio system. It's not as good as the previous generation RX, but it does still have its merits. So check the link below if you want to see that. We also have a full dedicated review of the highway efficiency and range on electric alone and then gasoline for this RX. So check the link below if you want to see those. Also, shout out to the video sponsor, LastFit. We've been putting LastFit liners in just about all of our test vehicles for a while now, and I appreciate that when I'm doing things like loading Eve's car seat up in here, scuffing it up with all the little bits on her wheels and everything, we're not getting the carpets of our cars dirty. So you can see how nicely this 3D measured TPU trunk liner lays in here. Cargo liner goes well up to the front seats, and anything I put in here throughout the week has been covered. And then same thing getting into the back seats. I've always appreciated how well they fit in everywhere. Look how nicely contours along the seats. Got this tray style, so if you live in an area with snow, sleet, slush, anything like that, all of it's staying in here, and then you could either vacuum it out or pull it out, keep everything clean. And then again, we're seeing that up in the front. The mats latch in to the factory anchors down here on the floor, go well up under into the dead pedal and underneath the brake pedal. You can see, I mean, it did rain here, Southern California. Yes, that does happen. And I was able to keep the carpets clean thanks to the LastFit liners. So if you do want to get some for your RX or any other vehicle, check the link below. We can get you 18% off with the code DailyMotor, or just use our link below. Big shout out to LastFit for sponsoring. We appreciate them. Starting off with my pros, it's got to be the styling. In fact, when I was shooting the review on the Lexus TX, the larger sibling to this one, about a month ago, I was shooting that review, or at least driving over here to shoot it, and I saw an RX on the way, and I thought, you know what? That RX looks so much better than the TX. There's sometimes with styling, little subtle differences go a long way. So at first you might be like, oh, well, they all look the same. No. The RX looks so much more beautiful and swooping, and the front design is more cohesive. I appreciate that they painted a little bit of this grille and then did the rest of it in this lighter gray rather than just having it be all big black plastic so it looks gaping. No, this one looks a little bit more subtle. The lights come through to a more attractive front face. So that was still a little bit of a big snout for me, but I think the wheels are beautiful. The chrome accents are nice. You got a little bit of this floating aspect here, and then the back. It harkens back and kind of keeps the lineage of the Lexus RX over the last 20 years, but still brings it into the modern Lexus design language. I think it looks great. And that styling continues on the interior. Tell me this isn't the most beautiful interior you've seen in a minute. The combination between the darker leathers, the nice light ivory looking leather, got a little bit of Alcantara going on here. It feels nice, it looks nice. And then when I first got in here and saw this nice light wood grain on the steering wheel and in the center console, and then up on the dash, you see a little bit of the ambient lighting reflecting up off of that design element. This is how a Lexus should look inside. And I gotta go on a small rant here. Every Lexus RX I've driven up to this point, and most Lexus products that I get here in the media fleet, have the F Sport trim on them. And especially, the last one I drove was an RX 350, which is just the base 2.4 liter turbo with F Sport. And I'm like, who's buying a Lexus RX, especially the base engine, and wanting any sort of sportiness to it? No, this is how I want my Lexus. I want it luxurious. I want it to feel like a luxury house inside, like I'm in the living room of a condo over there on the coast here in Southern California. I want it to be quiet, smooth, and luxurious. This is how a car should be. Don't give me F Sport. I don't understand why you'd buy a Lexus RX with that package. If you want a sporty car in this class, go get yourself a BMW. This is how an RX should be. I think it looks great, and it's great to be in. In fact, continuing along here, I realized I have styling and interior materials and design as two different pros, because there's so much about the interior of the RX that has worked well for my weekly driving. You have to realize, I get a different car every week, so that means I'm getting acclimated to a different car each week, and I'm settling in and getting comfortable and using all the aspects. So any little bits of poor design amplify themselves, and when a car is designed well and it's functional and it's nice to be in, I notice, because I have few frustrations when getting used to everything. The fact that everything is comfortable, nice to the touch, smooth, soft, attractive cross-stitching, easy to use. I'm just realizing I gotta empty this out and take that out when I get home. The cup holder is large enough to fit my 32-ounce metal water bottle. A little bit of storage here with wireless device charging, decent sized storage there. Door pockets that are large enough to put some extra things, and some storage right here. It's not as practical as something like a family SUV would be at this price point, or that I would hope for, but when you kind of consider the typical buyer of something like a Lexus RX, the interior is just the right balance between looking good and being functional. And you even got yourself a sunglasses holder. Look at this. The passenger seat even has the ability to be adjusted from these controls right here. And I've actually used that throughout the week. I was putting Eve's stroller back here, and I just inclined the seat forward just a little bit in order to get a little bit of extra space there. This is something that we typically see in Hyundai and Genesis products. I like seeing it here in this Lexus. It's a very nice little touch. It feels like the cabin has been well thought out and well utilized by many different designers and engineers and planners, that there's very little bit about it that has felt to me that it's disconnected or doesn't make sense for the vehicle. Next pro, we're going to start up the RX. And aside from a few beeps, you hear nothing. And that is because we have an 18 kilowatt hour battery pack and three electric motors powering this all-wheel drive RX model. That means you can do about 35 miles or so, depending on how you drive and what your climate conditions are like, on electric alone. You can charge this car up at your house, probably even with just a 120 volt in your garage or something like that. Head out, do your commute, do your daily driving, your drop off, your pickup, whatever you need to do, and probably do it all on electric. In fact, most of my driving in this car, aside from our highway fuel economy test, has been on electricity alone. And it's fantastic. It's just enough power to feel peppy and to get you around traffic, even up to highway speeds, on electricity alone. But then, when you want it and when you need it, you can switch over to the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated inline 4. And I love the 2.5 from Toyota Lexus. Is it the most powerful engine on the market? No, it isn't. But it's one of the most fuel efficient engines on the market. And that means that even when we were running this car on gasoline for our highway fuel economy test, it got great fuel efficiency numbers. I was really impressed I think we were somewhere in the just under 35. I think we were 34 mpg running on gasoline alone, and we got something like 33 or 34 miles on electricity. I haven't looked at the final numbers here in front of me yet. But it makes this one of the most versatile powertrains. And I would be hypocritical to not point out, like I did in the TX review, that in some ways you get the worst of both worlds with the plug-in hybrid. Because if this were a full electric vehicle, it would be more energy efficient. And if it were a full gasoline vehicle, it would be more energy efficient on just gasoline, because it would be lighter weight and it would be simpler and it would cost less. I mean, you're probably not going to make up the cost difference between if this were just a normal 2.5 hybrid as opposed to being this the plug-in hybrid aspect. But that matters a little bit less to me in this category of vehicle, because somebody who's buying an RX, especially a fully loaded luxury one like this, probably just wants a nice driving experience in all sorts of scenarios. And so you really can drive this around as an electric vehicle. Yeah, it's not going to be quite as energy efficient as a full EV, but you get to feel like you have a full EV. But then when you want it and when you need it, you can switch over to gasoline and go do a road trip or something like that. And right now, we're running on gasoline. You can barely hear this engine. It's very well damped and tuned and quieted down. It's decently refined. It's probably the most refined I've felt this 2.5 liter from Lexus. So they did a great job, and it's got an eCVT, so the transmission's pretty much always there where you want it to be. It's got a good amount of power. It's very fuel efficient. And on top of all of that, you have a lot of control over this powertrain as well. Some plug-in hybrids, you have to drive it essentially as they've told you to. But Lexus gives you multiple abilities here. You can drive the car as a full EV, so that even if you put your foot all the way down, it stays an electric. Or you can switch it over to auto hybrid, plug-in hybrid, which means it's mostly electric, but if you put your foot to the floor, it fires up the gasoline engine in order to give you more power. Or you can drive it as a hybrid, just a standard hybrid, which means it'll save your electric state of charge. So if you're at, say, 32 miles right here and I switch it, that's the mode we're in now, hybrid, it'll stay at 32 miles of charge. Or you can hold this down and put it into EV charge mode, which means it'll run the gasoline engine harder and actually charge up the battery like a generator. So I love that Lexus has given you all of that control right here with two different buttons, very easy to toggle through. But if you're just somebody who just gets in and drives your car, as I imagine many Lexus RX buyers are, you simply do that and drive, and it works great. In fact, we'll switch back over to electric here. You can see now we're on EV, foot to the floor. Oh, wait, that's hybrid. That's auto mode right there. Now we're in full EV mode. Let's get the engine to shut off. Up here at highway speeds, this car is so quiet and it's so smooth. The ride, the damping, the fact we've got big amounts of sidewall on the tires, it makes it so that this is such a nice place to be. The seats are comfortable, the ergonomics are good, it's quiet, it's smooth, the steering's light, the steering wheel's thin. This is how I want my Lexus to be. I love being in this car, I love driving this car, and I love being isolated in this car. Fantastic. Okay, now you can see I'm going to come out of this turn and I'm going to put my foot to the floor. No gasoline engine because we're in full electric vehicle mode. And it's still a good amount of power there. Last pro, the Lexus experience. With the Toyotas, I'm calling this the T factor. But for the Lexus, I'm calling it the Lexus experience. And that's because when you buy a Lexus, you get an upgraded dealer experience. You get a vehicle that you know is going to be one of the most reliable and generally easy to use on the road. And that's the case here with the RX. You know if you buy this, it's going to be dead reliable for hundreds of thousands of miles. Maintenance is going to be simple and straightforward. It's going to be an easy vehicle. Despite having 3 electric motors, despite being a plug-in hybrid and having a gasoline engine, it's still going to be a fairly easy and straightforward experience. And then when you take it to the dealer, you're going to be treated properly. And theoretically speaking, the purchasing experience should be easier than, say, going to, I don't know, a Kia dealership, for example. There's a reason why once people start buying Toyotas and Lexuses, they typically keep buying Toyotas and Lexuses. And Part of that is the dealership experience. Part of that is the ownership experience. First con, coming back here static, is the sound system. Now, I told you earlier we've got a dedicated review of the Mark Levinson 21-speaker audio system in here. We've also reviewed the bass audio system in that 350 that we had a few years ago. It's fine. If you're coming up from a non-luxury vehicle and getting into this, it's good. But for the class of vehicle and for what Mark Levinson systems sounded like in previous generation Lexus products, it's a disappointment. There's not enough customization in the infotainment to make it feel like a luxury system, and the sound quality, especially at higher volumes and more complex music, is not there for this price point and for this pedigree. So it's a disappointment for this vehicle. I would like to think that Lexus and Mark Levinson have plans to improve the system on something like a mid-cycle refresh of the RX. I would love to see that, because at this price point, it's not doing it. Next con. I'm going to turn the vehicle back on here. It's a combination between the infotainment and these touch-sensitive steering wheel controls here. I've used a number of the new Lexus products. I'm very familiar with these steering wheels. In fact, I spend 200 to 300 miles typically in every car that I test, doing the fuel economy testing, driving around day to day. So I get very comfortable with the controls of every vehicle. And I gotta tell you, I still don't like these touch-sensitive controls. They're real clicky buttons when you actually have to click something, but you have to sort of massage the button in order for it to realize that you're pressing it and which part of the control you're pressing, and then when you click down, it engages that functionality. And whether I'm adjusting my track, whether I'm adjusting my cruise control or resuming, the slight delay and the slight extra input that you have to give to the system in order for it to toggle your control takes away from the experience and is that much more frustrating. Those little tiny micro frustrations add up when you're driving a vehicle. And that continues along to the climate control here. If you're somebody who just sets 72 degrees auto and leaves your climate control, you'll have no problem with this. But what I found is there's multiple times when I'm adjusting fan speed. I'm somebody who likes to have low fan speed while I'm driving, so I don't really hear the fans running. If you're driving along doing 70 miles per hour and you need to tap through and adjust something with your climate control, it's difficult to do. The place to rest your finger is low on here, and because you don't just have something forward that you can click, put your finger on and press or turn, you have to be a little bit more careful. You have to take your eyes off the road for a little bit longer to adjust your climate controls. So is this the worst in-screen climate control system on the market? No. Am I glad that they at least still gave us some physical scrollers for the temperature? Yes. But I would still like to have some nice tactical physical buttons to adjust here for climate built into the vehicle. I think that's luxurious. I think buttons, well done, nicely looking, good feeling buttons, are luxurious. And then for the infotainment system itself, if you're somebody, again, like most people who just get in and rely on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, okay, fine. This system actually does work well. It's been connecting to my phone just fine throughout the week, no problems there. But if you're somebody who likes to use more of the built-in infotainment system, this system is fine at best. It doesn't feel special. It's not particularly powerful. It's not particularly impressive. I mean, look at all this delay as I'm moving the map around here. You realize you get into something like a $35,000 Tesla Model 3, and this system is butter smooth and feels like you're using a smartphone. This is not a luxury car system here. I'm sorry. This is something that you get in a Toyota. They put it in the Lexus. It's fine. It gets the job done, but it's not impressive. Next con. This one is much more subtle, but it's one of these real-world usability aspects. The wireless phone charger is way in here, which means if you take your phone, put it down in the wireless device charger, you're driving along, you're commuting home from work, anything like that, you stop your car and you get out to leave. The number of times I've forgotten my phone in here, countless. It happens all the time. And other luxury cars have considered that. You get in a new Audi or something, and if you leave your phone on the wireless device charger, shut the car off, open the door, it says, excuse me, you still have a device in the charger. In fact, I think the Mercedes do that as well, come to think of it. So if your phone was right up here or something, you're more likely to see it. But the fact it's way buried down in there, you got to be aware of the fact you're very likely to forget it. And on top of that, come to think of it, I don't believe there's any active cooling for your device down in here, so it's going to get particularly hot when you're wireless charging. Next con, again, might seem subtle, but it's kind of hard to close the doors in the RX. And on one hand, I think a part of that is because they do shut so solidly. Wait a minute, did I not shut it properly? Look at that. You all saw, I mean, that was a pretty decent slam, and it still didn't close all the way. You really got to slam these doors, and that's all of the doors around the cabin. My wife had trouble closing the doors properly. I, at one point, got in and went to drive, and it said both of these doors, both the one from loading Eve into the back, and then also my door wasn't closed properly. So I don't know if they need to change the torque point. I don't know if they need to change the latches or whatever it is, but this has been one of the hardest vehicles to close the doors properly. And on one hand, I do like that the doors do close very solid, because then it makes for a nice, solid, quiet cabin. But the downside is if you have something like a sleeping baby in the back, you do kind of have to slam the door to get it to close. So pros and cons. But the fact that the torque point of where you pull the door closed is further forward, you really got to give it a lot of effort to close the doors. The last con is very minor. I fully understand that. But it's the other trims of the Lexus RX. If I'm evaluating the Lexus RX in general, this is the one, at least the luxury model and the non-F Sport is the one that's made the most sense to me. Anytime you get an F Sport RX or one with that 2.4 liter turbo, those don't feel like an RX should feel to me. The reason this plug-in hybrid luxury non-F Sport has been so great is because it is quiet, it is refined. You barely ever hear the engine or the powertrain. Side note, the color is beautiful on that BMW, very nice. This is how a Lexus product should be. So I've enjoyed my time with this car immensely, but I haven't enjoyed my time with every RX. So just be careful about which RX you choose to buy should you go out and purchase one. Because if you get yourself in something like a 2.4 turbo with the F Sport like I drove a few years ago, it's not going to be the same experience as this one. Get yourself one with wood grain. Get yourself one with, I wouldn't even say you have to get the plug-in hybrid. The 500H is great too. I would just love to have something like a 350H where you just get the 2.5 liter, a normal hybrid, no plug-in hybrid aspects, make it lighter, make it more fuel efficient, make it simple and affordable. That would be fantastic. Now, they do make the 350H. The problem is I don't like that 2.4 turbo nearly as much as the 2.5 NA. And I understand 2.4 turbo makes more power, but I would love to have the 2.5 with hybrid without the plug-in hybrid aspect. That would be the ideal for me at a much lower price point, obviously. But before we fully wrap up, we got to put the RX on the Daily Motor Leaderboard. Current leaders on the DM Leaderboard: Kia K4, Toyota Sienna, Hyundai Ioniq 9. This is where this is going. Third place so far this year, behind the Sienna and above the Ioniq 9. The Sienna just makes too much sense to me at its mission to be above this car, or to be below this car, and the price point's really there. This car also executes its mission so well. When I'm evaluating cars, I look at how is it to drive, how would it be to live with, and how well does it execute its mission. This car is great to live with, it's great to drive, and it executes its mission fantastically. So, this is a great car. I would buy this. So thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on the Lexus RX, check the link below. Big shout out to LadsFit for sponsoring the video, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.